In January of 2023, I made over $67,000 selling my journals on Amazon KDP, and this is how I spent it. Hi, my name is Shanice. I run a stationery shop called Shanice DK Designs, and on this YouTube channel, I talk about all things business and marketing. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and subscribe, stick around, join the family. But if you're coming back, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's been a hot minute. Like, I made one video in August, and y'all, I took an unexpected break, but I'm back. Hopefully I'm better, and the videos are going to be rolling out consistently. So thank you again for joining me on my channel, and I hope you watch this video all the way through. So as I said in the intro, and as many of you here on my channel may know, I made over $67,000 on Amazon KDP in January of 2023. This was like an unexpected blessing, if I'm being honest with you. I literally woke up one day and a journal that I had sold like 100 copies. I was literally on Instagram, on TikTok, begging people to purchase my journal. I woke up one day and I had like over $10,000 or something in my account. Like, I don't even know. It was just a wild, wild, wild journey. I can't even recall exactly how it happened. I just know one night I was on the phone with my mom and I was like, you need to pray so that they add more money. let it keep going up. Let's pray, let's pray, let's pray. And listen, those numbers ran all the way up. I feel like I had two $15,000 days. So literally 2 days, I made $30,000. It was miraculous. Of course, with that comes a 2-month wait period for you to actually get all of that money. And that in and of itself was a faith walk. But, God saw me through all the way to the end, and I'm super happy and super blessed. And so this is how I spent that money. To go back to January, right, in the wake of all of this happening, I'm like, still working my full-time job, right? So I'm still working my full-time job. Previously, I was a teacher. For those of you who don't know, in January, I was still working in education, but I was not in the classroom. I was supporting teachers who were in the classroom. So that was my position in January when all of this was taking place. It was an exciting time. It was a crazy time. But that came with me now needing to figure out, what am I going to do with all of this blessing come March when this money hits my account? At that time, this money was more than what I was making per year in my position. So of course, that also brought up, hey, are you going to still work this job even though you literally made more than your year's salary working here? Are you still going to keep the job even though you have this money? So I needed to figure out what I was going to do with it. You may be thinking, why do you need to think about what you're going to do with it? Like, why do you need to spend it? Well, I'm one of those people that I don't want to have regrets about something so big happening in my life, in terms of, like sometimes you may get like an extra $5,000 on your taxes or something like that. And you're like, where did that money go? You know what I mean? You spent it on bills, you spent it going out, you spent it buying purses or something like that. And you never actually see the true value of all that you earned, of your hard work, right? So I did not want that to happen, especially with such a large sum of money. In addition to that, I didn't want that, I don't know if you've ever heard, but people who win the lottery, sometimes they say they win all this money in the lottery and then they literally have no idea where it went, right? So I did not want that to happen to me. So I needed to figure out a plan of how to invest this money and invest it wisely. Fast forward to March, when I was about to check out, I started sitting down and I was praying. I was like, God, what do you want me to do with this blessing? How should I use this? What impact can this make, not only in my life, but in the lives of my family, both my family here and my family that's to come, right? So how do you want me to play this out? What's the vision? And so I felt as though God was telling me to purchase another house. Saying this to say, because back up to 2021, my husband and I purchased our very first home and we moved in. It was great. It was an older house. It was about, like in the 1980s or so that it was built. So it definitely was not a dream home type of purchase. It was more of, rent is really high right now, and we rather put our money towards a mortgage than putting all this money towards rent, because rent was literally the same price as what we got for the mortgage at the time in 2021. So we already had a house. So I'm like, we want to get another house. So I had different ideas. I thought about moving states, instead of having two houses in the same state, move state, go somewhere else. Of course, the one that we already owned would have been put on rent. And so in this case, the blessing for my other family came in that I would be allowing that place to be a place for family and not just renting it out to strangers. And that would also be helping out my family because they would be able to live there at a lower cost than they would live in an apartment, but also live in a more comfortable space, right? We have a really big yard. We have like 4 bedrooms. Like, it's a really nice place in a really good area. So it would benefit them in that way as well. So I just felt like that was the vision. So I felt like God was saying, hey, purchase this new place that you can move into, but also leave this other place for your family to build their home and build their lives. And so that's what I wanted to do. And that was the plan. And that's what I did. Of course, that in and of itself was a faith walk. If you know anything about purchasing a home, or if you haven't purchased a home before, a few things do come into place when it concerns purchasing a home. So one thing is that you need to have a debt income ratio lower than 50%. A lot of people say lower than 47%, but you have lenders who would just take anything lower than 50%. So of course, being that we already had a mortgage on our credit, by we, I mean my husband and I, we already had a mortgage on our credit. We needed to find a way to cover that mortgage payment. And so for that, we needed to provide some type of projected rental income. So that is one way that you can afford a mortgage if you already have one, is that you can provide your lender with something that shows that you are going to get projected rental income. So they're using the future rental property as a way to offset your current debt to income ratio. So that's one thing that we had to do, was make sure that we had a tenant secured, make sure that they had a lease, and also make sure that we collected a down payment from the tenant. So that was one way to offset that. But aside from that, we did have other debts like car, we had like car debt, we had just other little debts here and there. And so definitely had to use a lot of the money to pay down debt, and as well as use a lot of that money to pay down the down payment and the closing costs for the house. So all in all, like just for the house, in terms of closing costs and down payment, it was over 40 something thousand dollars. So that left me with about 20 something thousand in terms of what I had left solely from KDP. And then that money was supposed to, one part of that is taxes, right? Can't remember that I need to pay taxes on this money. So part of that is taxes. And then another part of that is helping to pay down some of the debt that I had to make sure that we were able to secure this place. So the money is literally done. It is literally done between the down payment for the house, between taxes, between paying off debt. It's literally done. And plus we had to dip into other funds that we had. So like my husband, he had some savings. He had to dip into that as well. But, it feels worth it because now I'm in this home and it feels great to be in a new house. If you know my story, growing up in the Caribbean, I grew up with literally holes in my floor, right? So although I owned a house before, I had never owned a new house. It feels good to be in a new house. It feels like such a blessing. It feels like all of my hard work paid off or is paying off. And I'm just so thankful. I'm just so grateful for this journey. I feel so blessed. And it's such a faith move. Like my faith has grown this entire journey because you guys, it was not easy. Like this is a new house, which means that it's a new build, which means that I also started the process before I actually got the money from KDP, right? So I remember talking to the lender on the phone and he's like, yeah, I don't think you can do this. The highest I can get you for is 300,000. which in this house was costing about 430,000. So he was like, the highest I could get you for is 300,000. And I'm like, listen, I have some money that's going to be coming in from Amazon. I'm just waiting on it. I sold some journals back in January. I explained the whole situation to him, and he was like, okay, you know what? When that comes through, send me over your new bank statement, and we can see if we could get you that pre-approval. And I didn't want the house to get taken because I wanted a place that was close to everything, right? So it was close to the gym, close to the supermarket. So this place, this lot, at that time, it was just a plot of land. This plot of land was a plot of land that I wanted, which is why I started the process before I actually got the money, because I didn't want them to take this plot of land. And come closer to the end of March, I got the money on Amazon KDP. I immediately hit up the lender like, hey, I have the money now. It's here are my bank statements. He was like, okay, I see what you're doing. And then he literally sent me the pre-approval at the same time as I was on the phone with him. And we put in for the house. We did the down payment, which at the time in March was $10,000. And then it was literally just a waiting game, trying to make sure that we're keeping our credit in order. So that's something else that you need to know if you are thinking about purchasing a new home, is you start the process about 6 months out, right? They do a credit check. They look at your income and all of that. But then 6 months down the line, when the house is done, they have to do all that again. So much can happen in 6 months that this whole process of getting a new build is complete faith. Like, you're literally stepping out on faith here, because you're planning to move, right? You're preparing to move in 6 months, but so much can go wrong. You never know what can happen. Like at our other place, the roof started leaking. Like, it was a whole situation. I actually ended up changing jobs, which is another reason why I wasn't able to make as much videos, because I ended up changing jobs. So now I'm back in the classroom teaching. And I actually started teaching in the city that we were going to move to. So I was driving over an hour for work, literally all of August, which is why I didn't have time to make any videos, because I was driving an hour from the city that I lived to the city that we were going to move to for work. And, changing my job is a whole story in and of itself that I'm not going to get into that today. One thing that we came to learn with new builds is that it's never ready when the builder says it's going to be ready, right? So they said that we were going to be done at the end of July, and turns out it's August 20th and we still haven't closed on the house. They're barely wrapping things up. So it was a lot. My faith was tested, and you guys, I prayed. I just kept praying the whole time. And I'm still attending Forward City Church. We do have 6 a.m. prayer, which is literally just a Zoom session each morning from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And I'm waking up every morning, making sure to get on there, making sure to stay protected, making sure that I have my weapons as I'm moving through this world and doing things that really don't seem like I should be doing. You know what I mean? It doesn't seem like I should be purchasing my second home at the age of 28, living in America at this time in my life. It doesn't seem like I should be doing any of these things, but I'm doing these things. And a big part of why I'm able to do these things is because my faith is so strong. And so was literally just a faith move. And coming down to the last day, you want to believe that the day before we were set to close on the house, we hadn't gotten declared to close as yet, but the day before we were set to close on the house, they hit me up like, hey, so because you already own a home, your file left underwriting, right? Approved in underwriting, and went into some type of compliance, where they were basically saying, hey, we are not going to accept this unless her tenant can provide the first month's rent. Mind you, I needed to rent my place for at least $3,500 in order for it to cover the full debt to income ratio. Because one thing about having a new place is that banks aren't going to accept the full rent as the rent for the place. They only accept 75%. And so I needed to rent my house at $3,500, which is the market rate for a 4-bedroom house in the city that I live. So $3,500 is what rental houses, I should say, are going for in my area, but it's still a little high for my tenant. And so for them to have to come up with the first month's rent in under 24 hours was literally ridiculous. And so it was a crazy ask. But, you know, God, when you don't even know that God has paved the way, he had already paved the way. And so Friday, I remember, no, it was Thursday night. I took the day off work for Friday because I was preparing to close on Friday, even though I hadn't gotten the clear to close. I was preparing to close. So Thursday night, I remember staying up and I'm like, I don't know how you're going to do this, God, but I know you got it. Like, I don't know how this is going to happen, but I'm just saying what you said. You know, I started listening. There's this video on YouTube with, I think she pronounces her name Iman from Forward City Church. And there's this clip, I'm just saying what you said. And I literally played that clip on repeat Thursday night. Like, you said I'm supposed to have the house, so clear the clothes. Like, I literally replayed that song 100 times on Instagram that night because I just needed to keep that in my mind. Like I'm just saying what you said, God. Like, you said I should have the house, so clear the clothes. Like, you said this, not me. I'm just walking out the vision that I feel like you gave to me. Like, what's happening? So Thursday night, I was just literally doing that the whole night because they told me this at 5 o'clock, right? Which means banks were closed, right? So this had to be done Friday the morning of the day that you need to be clearing the clothes. So Friday morning, got up early, met up with my tenant, went to the bank, and I'm just like, 2 o'clock. It's like 2 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Texting my lender, like, what's happening? He's like, the underwriter is literally back in your file right now. And I'm like, praying. I literally sent him praying hands. I'm like, I'm praying. I texted my mom, like, pray. Texted my husband, like, hey, y'all need to pray right now. He's in the account. And that literally like 2:45, I believe it was like 2:45. I got a call like, hey, you're clear to close. Can you get here by 3:30? Or no, it might have been 1:45. Yeah, I think it was like 1:45, not 2:45. So I think it was 1:45. And then the direct deposit for the bank, I think you needed to submit payments by 2 o'clock in order for like the wire transfer to go through the same day. I believe, but all I know is we had like 15 minutes before you needed to submit a payment for wire transfer for it to be sent the same day. At least that's what they said in my account. So it might have been 2 o'clock. So it might have been 1:45 that they hit me up like, hey, can you come to close at 3:30? And I'm like, yes, can you do the wire transfer right now so that we can get it in time? And I remember like literally watching the clock. Hey, like, what time is it? I need to submit the wire transfer right now. So it literally came down to the wire. And I don't know. Yeah, anyways, I'm super happy, super blessed to be here. Just wanted to share that story with you all. Wanted to let you know that the money came in my account and it immediately left. Like it's done. It's spent. And yeah, so what I did with it was I paid down debt and I purchased a second house. So yeah. And I know for a lot of people, like, you're thinking like, oh, like I've heard this online, like people are like, oh, a house is not a great investment. I personally believe it is. I don't think you can go wrong with purchasing land. Like the house we purchased in 2021, we purchased it at about $360,000. And right now it's worth about $470,000, which means that if we were to sell that house, we would end up with some type of profit, right? We would be able to pay off the bank. We would be able to cover what we paid down and still have some funds left over. And there are not many things in life that you can purchase and then end up cashing out with such a huge profit. Well, as houses are appreciating assets, they're not depreciating assets like car. At least that's just not how the real estate market works, right? So like the house that we bought in 2021 for $360,000, it was built 40 years ago, and they literally bought that for $78,000 back in that time, right? So don't listen to people who tell you not to put your money in real estate or not to put your money in houses. One, it's the peace of mind of knowing that the money that you're paying out each month for living is going towards something as opposed to just going towards rent, right? What do you get at the end of 30 years? You rent for 30 years. What do you get at the end of 30 years? Nothing, right? you pay your mortgage for 30 years. At the end of 30 years, you have a house that you can pass down to your family, right? To your kids, to your grandkids, and things like that. So don't listen to people who tell you not to invest in real estate. That's just my 2 cents. And then, it also feels good to know exactly where that money went. And it's also why I didn't quit my job. So the second option, which I shared with you all here on YouTube, would have been to quit my job and just use this money as a way to sustain myself for the next 2 years or so, because I could have stretched that money out for 2 years, just to sustain myself with bills and things like that, while I build this business. That was one of my options, but that option just felt a little selfish for me. I didn't see the impact of that option on my family that's here, but my family to come, I didn't see the impact for them with that route. So that's not the route that I took. I was still working my full-time job, still in the classroom, happy to be back in the classroom. Not sure how long I'm going to stay there, but definitely going to continue to make YouTube videos on business and marketing. So you can expect that we're going to be back on a regular schedule on this channel, as well as I'm going to start publishing again. So that's my next big move, is to publish under a brand that I created at the time when my KDP account got terminated. So just as my account got terminated, I had actually stopped publishing under Shanice DK Designs and started publishing under this new faith-based brand. And yeah, that's it for this video. Hope I didn't ramble too much. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye, guys.